One more unpopular take from one of y'all, and you brought the juice with this one. Okay, you shot me a Hasbullah meme wearing a Florida State hat. And your unpopular take, you brought the juice, you said Florida State will be back among the elites in college football. I'm assuming you're referring to 2025. I appreciate this take. I really do. And I want to preface it with this. I really like Mike Norvell. I really believe in Mike Norvell. I believe in his culture. I believe in his ability to put together a roster. I believe in his ability to put together a staff. I love their staff. I think Gus Malzahn as an offensive coordinator, grabbing him from a Power 4 head coaching level and bringing him to be your play caller, I think that's phenomenal. Tony White, what he was in Nebraska, I thought he was going to be a head coach at some point in time. He's calling your defense in Tallahassee. With that being said, the roster that they have right now in Tallahassee, from what I can gather, they don't have what they need to be among the elites in college football in 2025. Like, if they were going to bounce back to being a team that competes for the ACC championship, let's define elite as competing for a conference title and being in the college football playoff discussion. If that was going to happen, they would have needed to make a much larger splash in the transfer portal. Grabbing a guy like John Mateer or a Carson Beck or like just a real game changer. And this is not trying to dunk on the guy, but they grabbed Thomas Castellanos, who could be awesome. I think it's doubling down on what Gus Malzahn is as a play caller, but for me, this is a guy who was benched at Boston College, and Boston College won 7 games last year. It's tough. It's very tough for me to see them bouncing back to a double-digit win kind of season and being in a top-tier discussion for the world that college football is. It wasn't like Florida State a year ago had a really good roster and it had some bad breaks. Like, they should have won 9 games, but if a call here or a call there, no, y'all, they lost 10 games. And 2 of those losses were by 1 score. It wasn't like a lot of them were close. They weren't good enough. And sometimes that's how you move forward. You got to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, today you weren't good enough. How do we move forward? I don't know, but it's got to start here. And it's got to start here with what they did via the portal. Because they have a number 24 ranked class with the transfer portal, took 16 transfers. And I like some of the pieces. Like, I like Deuce Robinson. I think that was a big get from USC. I like Squirrel White. I think some of his best football could be ahead of him from what he did at Tennessee. But that's not good enough to improve by 8 wins, y'all. It's not. It's not. And to be honest here, I don't think it's really fair if you're a Florida State fan for you to just hit the reset button, wake up and say, okay, now we're back in contention for the ACC title. We rage quit that whole game. Let's hit the rematch. That's not how life works, not how college football works. When you look at what you should expect for Florida State going forward, like, my thought behind this is, if I'm Florida State, I'm taking the same approach as if I just got my house hit by some sort of disaster, whether it's rain damage, a pipe froze and burst, whatever. The house is in bad shape. House is in bad shape from a roster level. Culture, another discussion we'll talk about in a second, but house is in bad shape. So what do you do when your house gets just turned over or your life gets turned over? You try to get back to neutral. You don't swing for the fence and say, okay, how do we just put this all together by tomorrow? No, it's how do we get back to livable conditions? Can we make a bowl game? Can we be a team that's, once again, a team you have to deal with when you see them on your schedule? Because that wasn't the case last year. It was the case the year before. It wasn't the case last year. Can we get back to being competitive? That's the goal. I mean, that's been really Florida State's story to success. You look at what they did previously. In 2022, they won 10 games. The year before that, won 5 games. They were an onside kick away from making a bowl game. That did not happen. So a team that could have made a bowl is what they were the year before. They win 10 games. They win double-digit games again. And then they go undefeated, and they end up finding themselves in a spot where they win the ACC, potentially should have made the college football playoff. 2021, 5-7. 2022, they win 10 games. 2023, they win the ACC. So when you look forward for Florida State, I do think there has to be some soul searching as to how you put your roster together, because we have applauded Florida State for their portal evaluations, and I don't think we should back off that idea. But I do look at Florida State and say, hey, if you want to live by the portal, the margin for error is razor thin. Razor thin. This is kind of the cautionary tale. You want to live by the portal, you're also going to, unfortunately, die by the transfer portal. So I think that's kind of what happened. Like, people are going to blame DJ Uiagalelei. Y'all, Florida State played 3 quarterbacks this year. DJU was bad. It wasn't like they had somebody in-house to go save him. That's a problem. It's a problem there wasn't other pieces around DJU for him to lean on. So I'm not trying to pass blame off DJU, but when you look at the transfer portal, it's got to be a thing where you have other pieces on your roster recruited at a high enough level, at the high school level, to have some sort of a backstop if you don't hit how you need to hit via the portal. So the rest of the teams on your schedule, they're not sitting back. You open with Bama. Don't think that'll be a walk in the park. You're at Miami. No Cam Ward, but they got a good quarterback who you're familiar with, unfortunately, from his time at Georgia. At Clemson, who's my favorite in the ACC, and then you finish at Florida. So that in itself is potentially 4 losses. Doesn't mean you have to go 8-4. Doesn't mean that you can't lose more than that. But my point being here, expecting Florida State to be elite right away after what just happened last year with what they did via the portal, the actions don't totally match up for me when I look at what's expected of Florida State from this take versus what they've done to rebound from what last year was. So I love Mike Norvell. I pull for him. I pull for that staff, but we'll see what they are here in 2025. But we appreciate the unpopular take, and as always, we appreciate the Hasbullah meme. Great stuff there.